What is going on, guys? Brewer here, back again with another video, and today we're going to be talking about something that might piss some people off, but it's also going to make you a whole lot more money. So have this in the background when you're working out, because this is going to be mostly just me yapping, but I also have some examples that I'm going to show you on the screen, some live examples on this. So let's first start by talking about conversion rate optimization. Conversion rate optimization, as in you're doing it yourself, or if you're hiring a conversion rate optimization agency, you want to make sure that you're doing this the right way. Most conversion rate optimization agencies and courses and stuff like that are not teaching you the right information, okay? And they're not doing the right things in your store. And there's a lot of problems with CRO in the e-commerce space, especially when you get to like higher level brands. If you haven't worked with a CRO agency before, they charge $5,000 to $10,000 a month, and they hyper exaggerate the results of what they're actually doing. So most of them will split test, one or two things a month, and they charge crazy amounts of money to do this. They'll test something and it'll have like a slight increase in conversion rate, and they'll say that it's going to make you an extra $500K a year at your current run rate. But it doesn't really work like that. And they use that to justify a $10,000 per month retainer. But the problem is they do not take all factors into consideration. So let me introduce you to something that is much better than CRO, and honestly just forget about CRO entirely and focus on this new thing called profit optimization. Now, this is basically the same concept as CRO, but the execution is completely different. Before we continue this video, I just want to say that I have a link to my Discord in the description, and I just launched my private group. It's $50 a month, and we do one weekly call every single week. You also get access to a private chat and the full documentation, which I update every single week, of me growing my brands live. What this means is that you can go all the way back to day one on how I scaled my brand from $0 to $23,000 per day, and also get continuous weekly updates on everything that I'm doing to build the business. You can also interact with the other people in the group on the group calls, and we don't have that many members right now, so it's very intimate, and I can really talk to everybody and share my feedback and discuss brand building as a team. So click the link in the Discord, and if you want to get in the private group, definitely just go in there. There's a private group section. You can click it and join through WAP, and you get instant access to everything. And we do the group calls every Saturday. So looking forward to seeing you in there. Let's get back to the video. Now, the whole point of doing CRO is to maximize the amount of profits that you're making from the traffic you're getting. But unfortunately, there's a whole lot more that goes into this than just conversion rate optimization and real profit optimization, because conversion rate is literally just a vanity metric, which means it's just a metric that, gives you data, but it's not really decisive, meaning if you get, a 3x conversion rate, it doesn't mean that your business is going to grow. What do I mean by this? Well, when you're looking at your business from like a macro view, if you doubled your conversion rate right now, would your business grow? I would say most of you would say yes, but that is just simply not true. And the reason it is not true is because there are other metrics in your business that also matter a lot, if not maybe more than conversion rate. And these are things like, obviously, conversion rate is one of them, average order value, lifetime value of a customer, your actual profit margin, your different take rates on specific products and specific upsells and things like this. And these are all things that go into the same number. For example, if you double your conversion rate, the reason most of you would say yes, because it just equates into like, oh, I'm gonna, make twice the amount of sales, which means I should be making twice the amount of money. But that question does not take into consideration average order value. It doesn't take into consideration profit margins. So if you doubled your conversion rate, but you lowered your price by like, 3x, then you have no profit left over. Okay, so now you can see the difference between conversion rate optimization and profit optimization. Because if your real goal is to make the most amount of money off of your audience as possible, then there has to be a lot more taken into consideration than just the conversion rate. Now, I want to show you some real examples from a brand that I'm working on and kind of a calculator on how you can do this to some extent. So this is a price split test. One of the prices at $20, the other price is at $40. So we can see that the average order value was like a straight up rocket ship. It went up by like $7 on average, but the conversion rate dipped slightly. Now imagine you were running an agency charging somebody, 10 grand a month retainer. You could just tell them like, hey, we increased your average order value by $6-7, and if you're getting 100 orders a day, that's $600 a day, the extra that I'm making you. And you could very easily justify a $10,000 a month retainer, or say that you're making them an extra $20,000 per month. Now, if you're not working with an agency, you can easily make this adjustment yourself and just say like, oh, I'm making an extra 20 grand a month because I made this, price increase and everything is good and dandy. The conversion rate wasn't really affected a whole lot here, except it was, okay? A 1.65 to a 1.36 is a big enough effect in the conversion rate to pretty much completely balance out this price increase. So the way that this is projected out is we have 100,000 visitors. You could do 10,000, 100,000, whatever. And then you have the amount of sales. So this is basically just visitors times the conversion rate. And then you have the amount of revenue. So this is sales times AOV. And then you have the actual profit margin. So this is the real actual profit margin of this brand at these two AOVs. Okay, so the profit margin went up slightly here. And this is another metric that you have to keep into account. That is another vanity metric that you have to, look at the whole picture. And I'm going to show you how to look at the whole picture a little bit later on in this video. But you can see that instead of it making us an extra 20 grand a month, if we're doing 100 orders a day, it's actually only making us an extra $400 on 100,000 visitors. So it pretty much made no difference at all on the actual business's profit. Even though on the front end, it's like, wow, we increased our AOV by $7. And yeah, if you were a brand owner looking at this, you wouldn't think that this is a massive difference in conversion rate. All right, but it is. It's enough to basically balance it out and to where you're not really making any extra money. And actually revenue is down. Okay, so revenue actually went down, gross revenue on these visitors, so revenue per visitor is down, but because the profit margin is better, it helps make up for it in the margin. So you can start to see how, changing one thing can completely change other metrics and end up just balancing out or even making it worse, right? Like if this went down to 1.26, we'd actually be making significantly less money even though our AOV is $6 more, which is nuts. So visitors can be used kind of as a base metric, which by the way, visitors is also a vanity metric, which is why you have to take into account everything. The more that you take into account, the more accurate your tracking will be and the better your profit optimization will be. For example, your conversion rate from Facebook traffic is going to be different than TikTok traffic. So I've seen brands where if they're doing $1 million a month and they have 3 different platforms running, instead of just doing visitors at 100,000, they'll do TikTok, Facebook, and Google visitors. And they'll separate it like that. That way you can see how the split test affects each individual platform. Okay, so you can get extremely specific here, and the more specific you get, the better. Because what if, during this test, you got a spike in traffic from like TikTok, for example, and the conversion rate just naturally tanked, has nothing to do with the actual offer and everything to do with the actual platform. Or you started spending more on TikTok than Facebook, or whatever happened at the time. But you can use visitors as a baseline, metric to compare these two variables, and also use all of the other variables like profit margin, conversion rate, AOV to determine the actual results of your profit optimization efforts. Let me show you another example here. So in this example, this is like a landing page split test. So, basically conversion rate optimization. But in this case, you can see that page 1 actually has a higher AOV and page 2 has a lower AOV, but a way better conversion rate. So let's kind of see how these balance out. Same profit margin because it's the same offering. We have a little bit less revenue, right? Because the AOV dipped. The problem here is the same problem as before. It's just different metrics messing with each other. So this time we have less of an AOV, whereas before we had more of an AOV. And this time we have a higher conversion rate as of before we had a lower conversion rate. So it's basically just flip-flopped. And you can see that it's pretty much the same thing. Like you made a little bit less money, but on the front end, you can feel really, really good. You can feel like you accomplished something because the conversion rate, increased by, what is this, like 30%, something like that, from 1.9 to 2.3. I swear, what conversion rate agencies will do is they will literally just be like, we increase your conversion rate from 1.9 to 2.3, and they won't take anything else into account, and they'll say, on 100,000 visitors, we're making you 2,300, or we're making you 400 more sales, and bada bing, bada boom, pay me my 10K a month retainer. Again, if you're not using an agency, you can also confuse yourself and misguide your business if you're not taking these things into account. So very, very easy. As soon as you introduce, the other variables, it balances out. Sometimes it even becomes worse, even though it looks really, really good on the front end. So if you ever see people, talking about how they increase their conversion rate or whatever, you have to pay attention to the other metrics, because it's not all about conversion rate optimization. It's about profit optimization. You need to look at the entire picture. Now, let me show you a tool that you can use to actually do this continuously in your business to make sure that every change you make is being tracked, and not only every change, but also every metric. This is something that I have for every single business that I run, and I call it a conversion rate tracker. You can call it whatever you want, profit optimization tracker, but it's basically an input and an output of all metrics that matter in your business. What is a metric that matter? It varies for every single business, but basically every little thing that could possibly affect the profit of your business should be on here. So we have visitors, orders, gross revenue, how many units were sold. We have breakdowns of specific products if you have different SKUs, and how many of those were sold. What's the take rate on those? Shipping revenue, and like I said before, you can get as specific as you want. Like instead of just visitors, you can say Facebook visitors, Google, organic, TikTok, whatever. It's just obviously the more specific you make it, the harder it's going to be to actually keep it updated and do the things that's needed to keep it accurate. This is probably the minimum that I would track, but as you get bigger, you can definitely add to this and add different variables. And then these are the inputs. So this is the information that you would manually go and put in, like go and look at your numbers. And then you have the outputs, and these can all be calculated with formulas based on the manual inputs. We have another manual input here for returning customer rate, which is also an interesting variable when it comes to AOV and conversion rate. We track returning customer rate because in one business, for example, the returning customer rate AOV is much smaller than the new customer AOV. So if we have a bad AOV that week, then we can look at the returning customer rate and figure out if the returning customer rate is a variable that's affecting the average order value for that week. Because if we get less new customers, our AOV will naturally go down. The whole point here is just to track everything. So we have all of our outputs, and you can output whatever data you want to see. It really doesn't matter. Every single business is different in terms of what we track. And then you also have profit. So this is looking at your actual gross profit percentage for whatever the time frame is, and you can do your best at trying to keep this accurate. For example, if you increase your price that week, make sure that you account for the different gross profit percentage here, and then you can get a total gross profit number, and then you can actually break that down into per order and also per visitor, and compare every single time you make a change in your business, you can log it. So here you can put date and change. You can basically put the date here, and then you can add a note on whatever it is that you actually changed in the business. And then week after week, or however often you want to do it, you can literally have an apples to apples comparison. And you can also click and drag these up and down and see, if you want to compare the first week of the year to the last 7 days today, you can all do that within this Google Sheet. So this is not a template, very, very easy to make. If you don't understand formulas and how to calculate the outputs, just use ChatGPT, tell it what you're trying to do, and it should be able to make formulas, but I would highly recommend learning Google Sheets and formulas and stuff if you do want to use this system. But the point is that when you're doing conversion rate optimization or profit optimization, you need to stay on top of every single metric in your business. And this is the problem with current conversion rate agencies out there, and also courses and trainings, is they don't talk about this. And this is insanely important if you're trying to grow an e-commerce brand, that you're not running in circles, increasing your conversion rate and realizing that you're not actually making any more money. It just feels good because you see a better vanity metric. But you have to start taking everything into account. And I've used this to improve a lot of my businesses, just slowly, week after week, just getting slowly better and making an adjustment here. And maybe I realized our conversion rate went up, but our revenue per unit went down, and that causes the problems with, profit margins. So maybe we reverse that. So you have to look at every single metric in your business. Hope this was valuable to you. This is Noah Brewer, and I'm out. Peace.